Livable streets provided the first evidence-based research of the problem of traffic on neighborhood streets. It provided the foundational arguments for traffic calming.
Donald Appleyard, who was a professor, conducted a series of studies on 3 different streets in San Francisco, chosen to be as identical as possible in every dimension except for one, the amount of traffic on each street. And what Donald Appleyard was able to show, that just the mere presence of cars with the envelope of danger that they project around them, and the noise and the pollution, crushes the quality of life in our neighborhoods.
What's really interesting about the graphics in the livable streets and what they really provided was it removed us from just looking at specific numbers of people being hit or killed on the streets, but actually showing that there was this other way that we could measure the environmental impacts of traffic on neighborhood streets. Things such as a light traffic street helped knit a community together, and in contrast, a heavily trafficked street would actually rip it apart, and fewer social ties were able to be created.
This chart here shows the social interaction on these 3 different streets. So each line shows a connection between one person on the street and another. There are just a lot fewer lines on the heavily trafficked street as opposed to the moderate or the light traffic street, which clearly has a lot more interconnection. So what these charts are showing is that people on the light traffic street, no more people have more friends than on the heavily trafficked street. On the light traffic street, people have on average 3 friends per person. And on the heavily trafficked street, 0.9 friends per person. The fact that the amount of traffic on the street on which you live can impact the number of friends you have in the world is of enormous significance. The other thing that Donald Appleyard plotted on these charts are these little dots that indicate where people gather. So it shows on the heavily trafficked street, there are a much smaller number of dots, and there are only a handful of places where people would gather on their street. The fact that they were able to measure and quantify the reduction in number of friends and number of acquaintances that's caused by traffic is enormously important and helps to illuminate the invisible harm that's done by traffic every day.
So when she talked about, back there, thanks for the comments about the social structure of how interactions happen, right? It's interesting to see that traffic has an impact on that. I feel this in my own neighborhood. I feel it because I live on a place where there's a bigger, busier street that goes in front of my house, and then there's a bigger, busier street that goes to the side of my house as well. Let's see. There we are. This is my neighborhood. And so my house is right here, this red dot. And then this West Pine Grove Road here is Route 45, so it's a pretty significant road. And then this road is Route 26 that goes up and over the mountain, actually where you're going to go to Shavers Creek. So you'll come in this way, on Route 26, you'll turn here, there's a yellow blinking light, and go over Route 26. And so what happens is that I am feeling as though there's a limitation to what can happen in my neighborhood. So, sorry, this doesn't seem to be working, but I am definitely most comfortable there. In this is where I know people. Like, this is where my friend group is. This is where I've made the most connections. And it wasn't until I really started thinking about, it's because of the cars. Like, I don't let my kids, they're still pretty small, I don't let them cross that street or this street on their own yet. They will someday, of course, but not yet. And so we just haven't made friends in the other areas, right? Because of the streets. It's, even though the other side of town isn't that far away, literally across the street, we just haven't gone there. So how this impacts our relationship. So you might want to think back to your own, childhood neighborhood and what that was like. So what about cities as places to live? Somebody mentioned, in Europe, things are different. This is a courtyard, so it used to be that cars could go through here, and then they changed it. So now cars don't go through, and it's this public space where people interact. Here in State College, right down the street on Allen, there's a long-time proposal to close that one block of Allen. So if you think about where Rapid Transit, Appalachian Outdoors, all of those stores are, that one block, Pickles, McClanahan's Food Market, all of those are on there. So what would happen if that was just a public space? What happens if that's not a through traffic area? The proposal continues to be shot down by those who feel it's better to drive through that one block instead of create this other kind of space. So what do you think? What would your opinion, just hearing about it, what would your opinion be? Close it or keep it open? Talk to your neighbor about that. So what do you think? How would you vote if you had the opportunity? I'd love to hear from a couple of people. I haven't heard from anybody in that back corner back there. Anybody have an opinion that?
Hi, Jen. Okay, so my group talked a little bit about closing it and making it a public space because we feel as though there are a lot of public spaces on campus, but not a ton downtown. And we specifically mentioned the market over the summer and how the public space would be a really great opportunity for the little downtown market rather than closing other streets and causing traffic jams.
Cool, thank you. Anyone? Oh, there's somebody here in the front section on that side too. Way on that side. Yep. Thank you. Keep coming forward, forward, forward. Great. Right there.
Hi.
Hi.
I would vote to make it a public space because two things, safety and community. I feel like on that corner alone and up on Beaver, there are a lot of bars, and I work like on that area, and I see a lot of people leave the bars and walk around drunk and cross that street.
Scary.
And I feel like, I feel like if it was a public space, it would just, I don't know. I feel like it'd be a lot better, and I feel like it would build community if there were somewhere downtown to like hang out.
Yeah. Thanks for saying so. And there's not a right answer, right? There's just, these are the kind of, when you go out into the world and you have the opportunity to play a role in your community, there is somebody else with their hand up back here, so yeah. So these are the kinds of things that you can get involved in, right? These kinds of choices for your community. I'll be right over there, just a second.
Hi. I think driving in State College is already terrible, and shutting another street down would just build up the congestion. So I think that kind of has to be a road because everybody who's driven in State College knows it's terrible.
Thanks for voicing your opinion. I'm not laughing, but I'm agreeing. Like, there's always construction. There's always something going on that's distracting as it is. And I know I've been in other towns with lots of one-way streets, and it's hard to navigate. So I appreciate you voicing that opinion as well. What else?
I personally think it's a good thing to close down the street. Back home, there's this place, Silver Spring, Maryland. They shut down the road, this like main road, I think 3 days out of the week. Just like have a farmer's market, just like have bands play, during the summer, during the spring. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's always good to have more space for people to just hang out. I don't
Yeah,
know.
building that community. So which is better for the community, through street, blocked off street? Thank you very much for all of your votes. But these are the kinds of things that you'll have the opportunity to be part of when you go out, even now, here, Penn State. You can have a voice in these kinds of things going on, whether it's on the community side or whether it's on the campus side. So lowering our transportation footprint, what's possible, right? If you can go back 100 years, if you could go back 100 years, knowing all of what you know about cars and transportation and shipping and all of those things that we've talked about, the amount of danger, of human death, of military action over oil, of separation from each other, of community, of climate change, of noise and health, and yet the convenience and all of the things that it makes possible, would you do it? Are cars a good thing, a bad thing? It's just something to consider. So what's possible without or with minimizing? There's a definitive source on how Americans get around. It's the National Household Transportation Survey. It's a mega poll, tens of thousands of people conducted for the Federal Highway Administration every 8 years, and it was released recently. Its findings remind us that Americans make a lot of short trips. 35% of our vehicle trips are less than 2 miles. So what's possible? It's even true that 20% of all of our car trips are less than 1 mile. So how can we make that come to life, like in real life for us? So the average person devotes about 1,600 hours to their car. So sitting in it and moving, or sitting in it and sitting still at a stoplight or a stop sign, or idling somewhere. Then you park it, and then you have to search for it sometimes if you're kind of like me in the grocery store parking lot, so that takes time. You work the job to earn the money to make monthly payments on your car. Some of the hours at work go to paying fuel and tolls and insurance and taxes and maintenance, and maybe traffic tickets. So it turns out that 4 of 16 waking hours is involved in being on the road or in some way paying for our vehicles. So we're really only going about 10 miles an hour when we average things out that way. So how dedicated are you to your car or having a car someday? You might want to consider. It seems pretty ideal. It's one of those signs of being grown up in our society. But really? Do you have to? So it's also true that most of our lives as a species, we've spent time walking, hours every day. Our bodies are made for walking, not for sitting. And so car use increased dramatically in the last 50 years. It's also true that over 60% of our population in the United States is overweight. So how do these things, heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, some cancers related to being in poor physical shape? So does driving really save time? You could do a transportation audit, the time it takes for you to find your keys, and then the time it takes to get to your car, and the time it takes to move the car where you want to go, and then to park it, and then to get out, and how, is it really saving you that much time? So what other options might there be? And of course, We can consider all the different public transportation, right? There's the bus. Public transportation, as I said before, has pros and cons. And I don't expect you to read this slide. I just want to point out the fact that there are lots of pros and lots of cons, right? Finding the balance, finding the right way. For instance, I live out in Pine Grove Mills. There used to be a bus that came in twice a day and went out twice a day, but those twice a day did not go with my schedule. As a mom, I need to get my kids ready for school and send them on their way, but then I've missed the bus. So having public transportation, I think, is great, but it never worked for me to take it. So it wasn't convenient. So we need to consider all of these options, you know. Efficient transportation method, less greenhouse gas emissions, less air pollution, cheaper compared to using your car. Good alternative for the older generation, potentially. Great for tourism. So all of those are pros, but then cons, it's less convenient compared to cars, for sure. I've experienced that. Not suitable for remote areas, may not be safe in some places. The expansion of public transportation might hurt other industries. So we can look at these things and consider, is it right? Is it possible? How can it be an efficient way to get people from one place to another? So public transportation is an option, but then there are also bikes. The average fuel economy for the new 2021 model year cars is the most recent information I could find. Cars, light trucks, and SUVs in the United States, the average fuel is 25.7 miles per gallon. I have to wonder why there's such slow improvement here. The government is making regulations and changing this, to be by 2030, we are going to be much more efficient that way. But for now, it's going very slowly. So cycling is said to be more energy efficient even than walking because we can get a farther distance on the energy we are burning. So a typical car with one passenger uses 50 to 80 times more energy to travel the same distance as an average person on a bicycle. So if we compare the amount of calories burned in bicycling to the number of calories an automobile burns, the difference is astounding. 100 calories, so if you have a good granola bar, 100 calories can power a cyclist for 3 miles, but would only power a car for 280 feet. So essentially, bikes get 930 miles per gallon, a 50-fold reduction in our ecological footprint. And bikes come with connection, right? Come with community in some cases, in some places. The United States versus Europe, those are a couple of different experiences. And these are the cycling lanes available in Europe. So it's very different. So here at Penn State, we have, you can't read it very well, bicycle-friendly university. Do you think so? What do you think? Talk to your neighbor about it. Is it a bike-friendly university? To hear if we could get a couple comments about this too. Couple comments, bike-friendly university.
Hello.
Hi.
So I bike a lot when it's warm in State College, and I have to say, downtown is not exactly bike friendly. On campus, depends where you are, but if you're on the road, you could get hit by a car, and if you're on the sidewalk, which you're not supposed to be, you'll almost hit a walker. So it's not easy. But then like the outside areas of State College, like I can bike to the grocery store on Atherton because there's like a bike path that makes it really easy.
Yeah.
So like I can get places there, but like in actual like downtown and on campus, it's not easy to bike everywhere.
Thanks for sharing your experience. Anybody else have a comment? That's been my experience too, that friendly is kind of relative. If you're super safe and super paying attention, then but it can be very tricky.
So I actually was stopped by the police on my bike once for going down a one-way, the wrong way, which might have been my fault, but on campus, I would have had to go way out of my way to go, I guess, the right way, but I was written a $50 ticket, and they told me to ride on the sidewalk next time, and as you guys know, when classes are changing, the sidewalks are full, so I don't think it's that bike friendly.
So maybe some attitude shift as well as some planning shifting. Interesting. Thanks for sharing your experience. Yes, one more, and we'll move on. This is a place where students can have a voice. Yeah.
Again?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, I'm trying to spread the wealth.
Is there somebody back there? Okay, great.
Well, I don't ride a bike, but I ride my skateboard sometimes. And while that's not necessarily like the same thing, like people do not like to share the roads. I've had someone brake check me before, and I ended up tearing my hamstring because I fell off of my board and tried to stop myself. And people go around you and get way too close, and it's just not really the best place to be riding something that's not a car, because everybody is in a hurry.
Right, it does seem like that does tie into it, that being in a hurry. Thank you for sharing your story. Okay, last one. And
Hello, it's me again. For the person that said they told you to bike on the sidewalk, you'll get a ticket for biking on the sidewalk in State College.
Sorry, you're out of luck.
So I don't know what they want any of us to do.
Right. All right, so this is a challenge here, for sure. So biking has its benefits, but it also can be challenging. Be safe out there, please. So while I don't want to be part of the media problem, sort of simply depressing people who largely have no power about these things, the regulations on airline, right, and flying is an incredible, if you remember back to doing your ecological footprint in lab, if you take flights, then it's going to increase the number of Earths wildly. Airplane emissions are expected to make up 25% of the world's carbon emissions by 2050. The greenhouse gas emissions of one person flying round trip from New York to London is what it takes to, one person, not the whole plane, one person on that flight. It is the same as what it takes to heat a single family home for a year, the carbon emissions. So to save that same amount of pollution created from that flight, a person would have to recycle every household item for 8 years or not eat meat for 2 years. So flying is incredibly environmentally taxing. As the environmental impact of planes becomes more, people become more aware, as it becomes more center stage, many passengers are becoming reluctant to fly. And in Sweden, it's known as flying shame. Frequent flyers are getting called out for their activities, and a record number of people are choosing to travel by train or not to travel. And so rather than flying by plane, there are also, the last time I did need to fly, I found this as interesting. I was scheduling a flight. Want to offset your carbon? This is through Southwest Airlines. We're going to not only match your contribution, but we'll give you rapid rewards bonus points. So they're encouraging people. Delta, British Airways, United, they all do this as well. So people are becoming more aware of choices. So where we're going to go on Monday or on Wednesday is this. We're going to get to the green triangle, the connections, helping the environment that helps our health and helps our wallet. And I'll give you your pack back question on Wednesday. I hope you have a beautiful day.